Hello and welcome. I'm the Theory Detective. In these lessons we'll uncover the mystery of music theory. Now we go back to the key of C major and the scale of C major and the chord of C major. Remember that the C major chord, the root of the chord, or the lowest note, the original note, is C, and everything else is built on top of that. A third above, and a third above that, or a fifth from the bottom. So here's our interval of a third, and an interval of a third again, and then top to bottom is our fifth. So we call this one down here the root. The root for the C major chord is, of course, C. And the third for the C major chord is the E. And the fifth, or the second third, but we say the fifth of the C major chord is the G. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put third and fifth. So we have root, third, and fifth. Okay, now if we're dealing with the main chords, the most common chords of any key, we have these special names for them. The one chord, this is the one because C is the first in the scale of C. So you start with C, therefore C. 1. So we have the one chord, and we have a special name for that. Tonic. Tonic just really means tone. So you can think of it as the main tone of the scale, and that would be C. So tonic is the one chord, and the key is C major, it would be C. And then you would have the fifth, and this is what we call the dominant. So we go fifth above, or the 5 chord, and this is what we call the dominant. Dominant. And if you go to a fifth above the root, so 1, 2, 3, there's our third, 4, 5, there's our fifth, that's the G. So the G chord, there's our G chord, becomes the dominant. So there's our tonic, I'm going to put tonic, and this becomes our dominant. I'm just going to put dom. Now, dominant just means the strongest one, or the most powerful one. The dominant does tend to dominate the piece. Oftentimes, the piece will start out with the tonic sound, and it will end with the tonic. However, most of the chords throughout the piece might very well be the dominant. So you might start out tonic, and then go to the dominant, do the dominant for a while, and then go back to the tonic. Many pieces do this, so dominant literally dominates a lot of pieces. So that's why we have the name. In the key of C major, it's of course the G chord, and it's what we call the 5 chord. Now over here, G skips up to B, skips up to D, and that's what gives us our G chord. G, B, D. So we have C, E, G. There's our C major chord, G, B, D, our G major chord, our tonic chord, or 1 chord, and our G major chord, our dominant chord, or 5 chord. And then I'm going to do C again. So here's our C chord again. It's a C octave higher. Just like we do a fifth above is our dominant chord, a fifth below also dominates. However, but it dominates from the bottom, from underneath. So right here, here's our C. If we go down, there's a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. So this F chord here, I should put it here. G, and there's our F. There we are. So there's our F chord, and this is going to be the subdominant. Sub meaning below. Okay, dominant goes from above, subdominant from below. Dominant is a fifth above, subdominant is a fifth below. So, unison, second, third, fourth, fifth. There's our F chord, and then this becomes skip up to the A and skip up, and there we have our triad to the C. So F, A, C makes our F major chord. So down here I'm going to put the subdominant chord, and in the key of C it's the F. So I'm going to do C major. So the tonic chord in the key of C major is C, the dominant chord in the key of C major is G, and the subdominant chord in the key of C major is F. Now, like I said, we have a fifth below, but you can't say a fifth above and a fifth below. That would be too complicated. And when we're dealing with the scales, we count from the bottom. So let's see what that looks like. Here's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and finally C. The C, of course, you don't count. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and finally 7. So we know that G is 5. So that's this right here. That's our dominant chord. So F would be 4. Just like from here, this is a second, third, fourth, fifth. It's a fifth below, but we count from the bottom up when we identify them. So our subdominant is the 4 chord. So we put a 4 right there. All right, one more thing. Actually, 2 more things. These chords they have a special name. They go by a term called primary. Primary just means the most common or the most abundant chords. The other one would be secondary. So we have a group of chords in primary and we have a group of chords in secondary. The primary chords are the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. And they are called the tonic, the dominant, and the subdominant. In the key of C major, they are the C for the tonic, the G for the dominant, and the F for the subdominant. Now the other thing that we have to talk about is actually the Roman numerals. You see, when we identify these, we don't actually put a number 1 or a T, a D, S, or whatever, S, D I think I put here. We actually use Roman numerals. So for Roman numerals, this is a 1, so we're going to put a big I here. Roman numeral 1. For the 5 chord, we're going to put a V, Roman numeral 5. And for the 4 chord, we're going to put an IV, Roman numeral 4. And I'm going to make them nice and large, really capital looking, because we use lowercase for minor later on, and I don't want anybody to get confused. So usually they go ahead and draw them like this, with a straight line across and straight line underneath to make it really obvious that they are capital. And then the subdominant IV, same thing. Make it really obvious that they're capital. So over here, there's our 1 chord. Instead of a number 1, we'll have a Roman numeral 1. Instead of 5, we have a Roman numeral 5. And then instead of, well, I didn't put a 1, but I'm going to go ahead and put it here. And then 4 is IV, Roman numeral 4 for the F chord. That's what it looks like. Okay, take out your flashcards for the practice pile. On 1, put the 1 chord and also the Roman numeral for it, the key of C major, and then on the reverse side, C major chord. Same thing for 5. The 5 chord, Roman numeral 5 or the V. Make sure that it looks very capital, very large with the lines fully across. Key of C major, and it's the G chord. And then the 4 chord, IV, Roman numeral 4, key of C major, and that would be the F major chord. Get out another one, write on it primary chords, and then go ahead and put the primary chords, the capital I for 1, the capital IV for 4, and the capital V for 5. And if you want to put the ones for minor as well, they will look like this. Lowercase I for 1, lowercase IV for 4, and capital V for 5. And then also take 3 more out for our special names. The tonic, and that's the 1 chord in a key or scale. Our dominant, that's the 5 chord in the key or scale. And the subdominant. It's a 5th below, but it's the 4 chord from counting from the bottom. So the 4 chord in the key or scale. Add those to your practice pile and practice them as much as you can until they become very easy. And as always, have a great day.